Stone Cold Prose, Building Better Words.
Guys, welcome to 5-Minute Book Reviews, in which I, Miles Watson of Stone Cold Prose, will be doing fast breakdowns of books obscure, out of print, underappreciated, misunderstood, or so notorious you might be afraid to be seen reading them. But here we have no fear of the printed word, and indeed, we celebrate everything. Trash, classics, fiction, nonfiction, history, biography, novelizations, you name it, we read it, I review it. So let us begin with Robert Collier's biopic of Benito Mussolini, Duce, printed in 1971. I begin by saying I have no idea why this book ever went out of print. In addition to being a hell of a read, it was clearly also the basis for the George C. Scott Mussolini miniseries back in the 80s, which boasted, among other actors, a pre-braces Robert Downey Jr. And no disrespect to him, but he needed those braces almost as bad as Jude Law once needed his nose job. Anyway, I have never read a Mussolini biography before, and this turned out to be a great place to start because Robert Collier knows how to tell a story. I use story specifically because this biopic is not your normal scholarly history. It is written in a slam-bang narrative prose style similar to that of John Cobbler, David Irving, John Keegan, or Charles Whiting, which gives it a feel of historical fiction rather than dry, boring history. Collier is a superb writer who I hope penned some fiction in his life because he knows how to make history come alive. He depicts Mussolini as a man so humiliated by childhood poverty that he embraced socialism not because it would benefit the masses, but as a form of revenge against the rich and privileged. He shows the Duce as a man whose resulting inferiority complex manifested in a cartoonish alpha male persona, a sort of hyper-masculinity around which he eventually built the political ideology known as fascism. A curious blend of socialism, imperialism, ultra-nationalism, militarism, and state-guided capitalism, whose infamous motto was everything in the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. Mussolini, in Collier's eyes, is a man who achieved a great deal against terrific odds, raising Italy to at least the appearance of both a great European power and a great colonial power. But at the height of his success was tempted into a curious Faustian love-hate relationship with Adolf Hitler that led to the Pact of Steel, the Axis, and Italy's fatal plunge into World War II. Mussolini himself is a curious kind of tyrant, unopposed to mass violence against foreigners, but never willing to take Italy as far as Hitler took Germany, either politically or in terms of repression and cruelty towards his own people, and thus a victim of scruples that he either should have fully embraced or probably not had at all. Mussolini, toward the end of his life, admitted that one of his biggest mistakes was not carrying his revolution far enough. When he marched on Rome in 1922, he felt he should have ousted the king and taken absolute power rather than dividing that power with a monarch that later schemed to get rid of him, successfully, I might add. This is not a mistake that Hitler or Stalin ever would have made, and indeed, Collier shows us a divided man, an outwardly strong man, a physically brave man, a visionary and virile man, with great charisma and huge ambition, but one tormented by numerous inner weaknesses that drove him alternatively into paralyzing periods of indecision or else sudden, decisive, completely idiotic miscalculations. A man whose grandeur was always part bluff, which is a genius trait, but who eventually forgot the difference between bluffing with a straight face and believing your own lies. Mussolini began his career as Hitler's extremely reluctant mentor, and ended up his prisoner and his slave, inferior to his former pupil in every way, including the manner in which he left the world. When Eisenhower heard of Mussolini's grisly fate at the hands of his own people in 1945, he said, "My God, what an ignoble end." Indeed, seldom has a man risen from dirt poverty to more dizzying heights only to fall even more completely into disgrace and ruin at the end, kind of like an idol toppled off its plinth that shatters into a million pieces. It was not for nothing that Italians who once hailed him as the second coming of Caesar eventually dubbed him Sawdust Caesar instead. Modern-day Mussolinis like Putin would be well advised to study his history very carefully lest they embrace the same fate. Now, my main gripe with this book, and really my only gripe, is that it skips rather casually over large periods of the Duce's life, while hyper-focusing on individual incidents like the dramatic rescue of Mussolini by German commandos from his Gran Sasso prison in 1943, or the intrigue surrounding his eventual execution by partisans in 1945. Not being a scholarly history, I can look the other way on this, however, and highly recommend this stupidly out-of-print book. If you like history or biography, it's a must, and if you don't, it's the perfect sugarcoating to get down the pill. Folks, if you enjoyed this, the first of my 5-minute book reviews, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell, and remember to check out my own books on Amazon, published under my own name, Miles Watson. I've written 8 novels, half a dozen novellas, and a short story collection, and have won over 20 literary awards, give or take. I will be dropping book reviews now every Monday, in addition to shorts that I drop just about every day, and my other scripted content, which drops every Friday at 3 p.m. I'll see you next time, and until then, keep reading.